Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Welcome. Welcome, everybody. We have a wonderful night planned for you. And just in a few of the conversations I've had, I think some of your children have been talking about David and his message today. And so we're really, really excited to have him here and to just spend this time with you all. As is good tradition and our Palmer Trinity tradition, we'll begin with a prayer, and I have a brief intro and we'll get started. Thanks, y'all. Please bow your head. Lord, make me an instrument of your peace. Where there is hatred, let me sow love. Where there is injury, pardon. Where there is doubt, faith. Where there is despair, hope. Where there is darkness, light. Where there is sadness, joy. O divine Master, grant that I may not so much seek to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, and to be loved as to love. For it is in giving that we receive, it is in pardoning that we are pardoned, and it is in dying that we are born to eternal life. Amen. Again, welcome, 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 welcome. I want to give a very special thanks before I get going here and give our formal introduction. Denise Gallardo, our entire PTPA, and two particular folks, especially our parent education co-chairs, Ms. Sarah Fumagalli and Ms. Suzette Clearly, for making this happen. Suzette Cleary for clearly making this happen. This is really, they have been working on this for months and talking about David and sending these videos out, so please give them a big round of applause. Thank you for making this happen. And just a quick mention here, and here you all know we began last year using the mantra, lead with love. And we broadcast that each week when the students gather. You may hear me mention it at times. You may see it in my writings, and it continues to be our mantra. And one of our traditions that we began many years ago, each summer our faculty have the choice of a summer read. And I can tell you the vast majority of our faculty this year chose this story. I don't know if you all have seen this or run across this, The Boy, the Mole, the Fox, and the Horse. Now, I joked with faculty when we made this selection because it only takes about 10 minutes to read. There are a lot of sketches here. It's a fairly simple story. My 9-year-old daughter loves it as much as her 52-year-old father. But it's an incredible, very simple, but powerful story. And I'm going to be giving David a copy of this later. But I want to share with you one of the pages here, one of the very simple moments in the story that ties into our message tonight. What do you think success is? Asked the boy. To love, said the mole. Tonight, we focus on this theme. We continue as a school to push forward, to lead with love, to embrace each day with excitement, with wonder, and with care, concern, and compassion, and to be part of something greater than ourselves, to think beyond and go beyond ourselves each and every day. And you will hear even more in a moment here. Now here's the official intro for Mr. David Flood. David Flood is the married father of 2 children. He is a board member of Kids Plus, a nonprofit which helps special needs children. He is a member of the Drug and Alcohol Task Force in his hometown of Northport, New York on Long Island. David has been a lector in his church parish for over 30 years. He is also a hospice volunteer that visits with terminally ill patients. He has spoken in 38 states and Canada to more than 400,000 students. His social media videos have received over 125 million views. David is addicted to Sour Patch Kids, which we presented him this morning. I don't think he's eaten all of them yet. Sour Skittles, Starbucks coffee, Dunkin' Donuts, and anything else with sugar or caffeine. Please join me in giving David a big, big Palmer Trinity welcome.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Patrick, can I have my prayer back?
came out of my wallet. I carry the St. Francis prayer. He needed someone to pinch hit, so I got St. Francis. And the second half of the introduction is really for the kids, but I don't know if you can identify with candy. I'm addicted to candy. Before I really want to applaud you for coming out, but I said to Denise and Patrick and maybe a couple of the other staff or administration or one of the parents, I said it to someone, how do I say this? You're the parents who want to be here. You're not the parents who need to be here. Someone just came into your mind, she needs to be here. He should be here for this, right? So I applaud you for coming out on a warm Thursday, August evening, and I apologize for the way I dress. Well, I shouldn't do that. I've been a lector at St. Anthony of Padua Parish in East Northport for 33 years, and when I read from the ambo, on that side, announcements from that side with the readings, the first and second reading from that side, I always wear a suit and tie. It's the only time I wear a suit and tie. But anytime and I won't preach tonight, I promise you that. But again, I applaud you for coming out. So, did your children come home and talk about anything that they heard today? Yes, you're nodding. Yeah. Oh, wow. Okay. I'm going to go. Thank you. What I did was sprinkle pixie dust on them and holy water, and they're all perfect now. So we're all good, and they're never going to give you a problem again. I had a mother, I was talking to a family earlier this evening, and a few months ago, every now and then, kids will reach out to me on Instagram or through social media, but I love when I hear from parents, and a lot of times it's moms. I had a mom, a very distressed mom, call me from Massachusetts just last week. My phone rings with random phone numbers. Is this Mr. Flood? The principal gave me your phone number. And I'm like, oh my God, here we go. And my daughter is struggling, she's lonely, she eats alone, she walks alone. But I had a mom reach out to me several months ago on Instagram, and it's unusual to get an Instagram message from a mom, more from kids. But she said to me, she said, Mr. Flood, we talked about you at our dinner table. Now, I wasn't impressed that they were talking about me at the dinner table. I was more impressed that they got together and ate as a family at the dinner table, which is such an important time. But I want to tell you, I'll tell you a little bit about my family, and I want to tell you what I told your children today so that you can reinforce that. And what I did, I gave them 3 challenges, and I will assuredly give you 3 challenges as well. Which things you can use, you cannot use, you can, put into practice with your family if you can. But to know about me, to really know who I am, because I am what I do. This is what I am. This is who I am. Ang asawa ko ay nakatira sa Parañaque. Anybody? That is Tagalog. My wife is from the islands of the Philippines. So my wife is from a city in the Philippines called Parañaque. It's the way I start all of my talks, whether I'm speaking to adults and kids. And by the way, it's much easier to speak to children than it is to you. Anyway, the only audience that teachers are the worst people to talk to. Well, your administrator. But they just sit in the back and they're like, we know all of this. I love talking to kids. But my wife is Filipino. We're married. We'll be married, which is very exciting. 25 years next week. And this is a big deal for me. I said, can we renew our vows? And if that gets me out of buying something silver at Tiffany, I'm in. I'm good. And we're going to renew our vows on September 5th. I emailed one of the priests in the parish, and I said, Father Bruce, my wife would like you to renew our vows after 10:30 Mass, and we're going to do. He said, yeah, David, in between the 10:30 and the 12, we'll renew your vows. And he said, how long are you married? And I said, 25 years. Is that long enough? Is that okay? And he said, sure, no problem. So we're excited about that. And but I love my Filipino family dearly. They have embraced me. I love my Filipino family dearly. My children don't look like me. I don't know. I ask the kids, how many of you think that's good? How many think that's bad? How many of you don't care? My children do not look like me. They look like their mom. They have their mom's genes. They have thick, black, beautiful hair. They have beautiful brown almond eyes. When we go to the beach in the summertime, the Filipinos get tan. The Irish people get sunburn and skin cancer. That's not funny. I really do. I need to go to the dermatologist pretty soon. But my daughter, who I love when she's not making fun of me, who does not look like me but has all my Irish sarcasm and attitude, is a wonderful child, but my wife and my daughter have TB, not tuberculosis. They have Tory Burch disease. Ladies, yes. And they also have DY, which is David Yerman disease. Just to explain to you the people that I live with, I think they have 8 pocketbooks between them. When my daughter, we started the college shopping thing. She's a junior now at Stony Brook. She did a year at Delaware and it was not for her. But she's at Stony Brook now as a junior going into medical school, we hope. But when we were doing the college shopping tour, shopping spree, whatever you do, when you go look at colleges, we decided to do a Mid-Atlantic tour. Now, we spend a little bit of time in the Hamptons, just watching other people, not really shopping. But there's a Tory Burch store in the Hamptons. We go out there for a $45 lobster roll every once in a while. But we go to the Tory Burch store because she wants a bag. It was, her birthday's August 1st. So this is, I guess, 3 years ago. And we go to the Tory Burch store in the Hamptons, and they don't have the bag that she wants. Now, she doesn't want to order it online because when you buy a Tory Burch bag, the bag that they give you the bag in, the gift bag, is worth like $100. So she said, Daddy, I don't want to order it online. So now, fast forward a few months, and we're going on a shopping tour in Mid-Atlantic. We're going to go to Towson, we're going to go to Maryland, we're going to go to Delaware, we're going to take it to George Washington. And I said, hey, Sarah, you know what? I know Georgetown. Georgetown's beautiful. Let's go to Georgetown. We could have lunch. It's a really hip place. She comes back to me the next day. She says, Daddy, there's a Tory Burch store in Georgetown. Great. So I figure I said, Sarah, you can either go to Georgetown or you can have a bag, because they're about equal in price. Semester at Georgetown is about the price of it. So we go to the Tory Burch store in Georgetown. This sums up my daughter. Go to the Tory Burch store in Georgetown, and they have the bag. I buy her the bag, and the bag that the bag goes in. We're walking out of the store, going to go to lunch. We're standing on a sidewalk outside in Georgetown, outside the Tory Burch store. She looks at me and she says, classic Sarah, she says, Daddy, I love you. You have such a cool vibe. She said, you have money, but you don't act like you have money. And I looked at her and I said, Sarah, that's not a vibe. Daddy has no money. I'm not putting on anything. That's my daughter. She's an awesome kid, when she's not making fun of me. And my son is an amazing kid. And I wouldn't be standing in front of you if it weren't for him. Justin is 22 years old, and Justin has autism. And in the autism community, we don't say high functioning anymore. We say low support. So just for people who are outside the autism community, we don't classify kids with Asperger's or where they fall on the spectrum of disabilities. But Justin is a low support kid with autism, but he's amazing. He is my gift from God. My daughter is an important part of our family. My wife is an important part of our family. I am an important part of our family. But for me, my son is just a little bit more important than the three of us. And I was just speaking to Patrick earlier, he has taught me more about myself in the last 19 months that I've learned in the last 19 years. All of the time that we've had together. But he struggles. And he was getting in trouble quite a bit. He loves anime. We go to anime conventions and Comic-Cons. And we're actually, have you all seen the Annabelle movie? Any of you with your children at the Annabelle movie about the doll that's possessed? There's a paranormal con in Connecticut in October, and we're going. And the Annabelle doll is going to be there. And he's challenged me to touch it. And I said, no, Justin, that's not going to happen. You never know where you're going to find yourself. But, you know, you think your son's going to play football, or your daughter's going to be this, or they're going to be a doc, or whatever, and you never know. And he's taught me so much more about myself than I could ever learn, you know, in a book or in a school or in a library or in watching a program on TV or even traveling. He's just taught me so many things about myself. But he struggles tremendously. And when he started high school, he got in trouble, I'm going to say 4 or 5 times the first month of school. He got sent home from school for doing silly, stupid things that any kid, a typical kid can do or a special needs kid can do. And there's got to be consequences with any child, you know, for acts, for, you know, actions that are unacceptable in school. And he came home from school one day, and my wife pulled him aside because she was a little bit closer with him than I was back then. And she said, Justin, what's wrong? You know, how can mommy and daddy support you, and how can we help you acclimate to high school, and how can we make things simpler for you? And she looked at him and said, Mommy, I'm lonely. And that just set off bells in my, rockets in my mind, because Justin went to school with 2,000 kids. There were 2,000 kids in his high school. So all I could think in my rational, linear mind is, how can anybody be lonely in a building where there's over 2,000 people walking around? How do we let that happen? And you don't want to think it, but there's 1,000 people walking around this campus, and I talk to kids today who are lonely. And some of the things that I'll talk to you about, I hope that they bring things up for you, and maybe you'll see yourself in some of these stories that I tell about kids that I've met around the country. But the other thing you need to know about me, to being fully transparent, is I've been in recovery for 31 years. I haven't used drugs and alcohol in 31 years at the end of December. And that's not by anything I did, it's by the grace of God and people who've helped me. But I was watching, thank you. You're not clapping for me, you're clapping for the people who've helped me. I don't believe that anyone does anything amazing alone. Not Joe Biden, not LeBron James, not a celebrity, not an actor, no one does anything alone. There's people behind them that you just don't know about. Coaches, people who've supported them, etc. So those people that have helped me. But I was watching a program many years ago. I was speaking at an Episcopal school in Virginia, St. Chris, where I go every year. And I was watching a program at night. I was, night in between. And I was watching a program on the opioid epidemic. And I'm watching this whole show on addiction. And I'm kind of half falling asleep in my bed. And then I heard in this program on addiction 3 words that woke me up and just knocked me out of the bed. It said, loneliness is toxic. Now, keep in mind where I heard that. I heard that in a program. It didn't say drugs were toxic. We know they are. I didn't know loneliness was toxic. And after what my son had told my wife several years earlier, I became obsessed with that topic. And I've used those 3 words in every talk that I've given since then. I've given 2,000 talks. And loneliness is toxic. Because no one's ever said that to me before. I've never read that before. I've never heard that before. And when I started to research, I found out that as early as 5th grade, kids can build a wall around themselves that's so high and so thick that no one can get in. And it doesn't take, they're doing studies now with vets and with children. Number one, loneliness is contagious. One person isolates on their phone and it causes other people to do that too. And it doesn't take too long for someone to start to equate loneliness with danger. Now, being introverted or shy is not unhealthy. It is when you build a wall around yourself and don't let people in. So it's so important. My talk today was not about autism with the kids. It was about inclusion. And you'd think at a school like Palmer Trinity, like St. Christopher's, like private schools that I speak at, you'd think the kids are all fine. I thought that too. But your kids are no different than any public school kid around the country. I promise you that. I promise you that. People need to share things. And I'm going to talk about some of those things. And as I said before, I talk to kids a lot more than I do parents, so I'm going to use a little bit of a cheat sheet. I was with a dad a few years ago who's got a son who's younger than Justin, and there was a moment of silence. He's got a special needs son. There was a moment of silence in our conversation, like a break in the conversation. And I looked up at him and I said, if somebody came to me today and offered me $100 million, they said, Dave, you can have all of this money, or you can have one genuine, kind, caring, compassionate friend for your child, I would choose that 365 days a year over all the money in the world. I would rather have one friend. He is dying to have a girlfriend. Just one friend. One friend. It's so... anything that I can say, and I know there's no special needs kids here. I mean, maybe some undiagnosed. I don't know, some kids on the spectrum. But anything that I can say to your children, or that you can say to your children, that causes them to have a bigger worldview. We were talking about all the traveling that you do, and go outside. And this, I really want to drive this home. I'm going to talk about teachers in a little while and give you some challenges, but I really want to drive this home. That, we have a program called Students for 60,000 in Northport, and they go to Costa Rica and they build, they'll do a mission trip, right? And they'll build a mission or do a garden or whatever in South America, or Cuba, or Puerto Rico, or wherever they go. And I know that schools that have wealth and can share that with, you want to do a fundraiser for kids in Africa, great. Tanzania, you want to do something for kids in South America, you want to send money to the Kentucky, to one of the, or an inner city school, even in Miami, that's wonderful. I tell kids, there's a kid with autism living in your neighborhood. There's a woman who's a shut-in, who's got no family, who's alone. So think globally, but act like there's someone in your neighborhood. There's a kid sitting right next to you in school that needs you. So make sure you stay right in front of you. The other thing I have in my wallet is Mother Teresa. Help one person at a time and start with the person nearest to you. So that is definitely the theme of the message that I gave to the kids today. So the challenges that I gave, I always want to think, what can I say to parents for them to help their children? And here's something I don't talk about enough, but I really want to. Never underestimate the power that you as parents have with your children's friends. You might, remember what I said before, you're the parents who want to be here. You're not the parents who need to be here. I can talk about them, they're not here, right? Never underestimate the power that you have, because you might be, and I say this to teachers all the time, you might be the best example. I know the parents here in general are probably very healthy and strong and have great relationships and are raising wonderful kids, sometimes. But never underestimate the power that you have. You don't know if one of your children's friends is struggling. So always have that radar. You don't have to raise more than one child or more than your children, but never underestimate the power that you have with your children's friends. The challenges that I gave to the kids today. Did any of the kids tell you about the challenges I gave? No? So the first challenge I gave them was to look on the inside of people. I did a nice exercise with them where I have them look at each other in the eye and stop looking at people on the outside, judging them by how they look, walk, talk, skin color, religion, if you can tell that from looking at someone. Apparently sneakers are very big at Palmer Trinity's. Yes? The moms are like, yeah, I got to go buy a pair tonight before I go home or something. No, but sneakers are big. So I'm like, don't compare sneakers and, look on the inside of people. It's so important. Stop looking at, Jim Rohn said, God looks on the inside, people look on the outside. God looks on the inside. So guess what? You take care of the outside for people and you take care of the inside for God. But be more like God and look on the inside of people. So that was the first challenge I gave them. The second challenge I gave them was to thank 2 adults in the building. I am a huge advocate of teachers, and I know I beat them up and make fun of them, that they're a terrible audience, but as far as people go, I'm going to talk about teachers in a little while. And the third challenge I gave them was that no one eats alone. Because Justin used to come home from school every day for 7 years in middle school and high school, and he'd walk in the front door, and I'd say, hey, buddy, where'd you eat lunch today? And he'd say, Daddy, I ate alone. Every single day. And I swore that if I ever got a chance to go out in middle schools and high schools, I would tell kids no one should have to eat alone. And I spent the time with the middle schoolers today. I didn't see, knock on wood, I didn't see anyone eating alone. But if they can take that out into the community and share, and I'm going to talk about some stories with the kids, as I said earlier, I'm okay with someone eating alone. They might want to read, study, write poetry, listen to music, play a game, meditate, do homework. I think that's wonderful. What I'm not okay with is someone not offering to invite that person to sit with them and having an impact on people watching. Because I told them a story about how people are always watching you. What you do is there's people watching you all the time. When you perform an act of kindness, 3 people benefit: them, you, and anyone else witnessing that act. So that was the third challenge, that no one eats alone, and however they can apply that. So these are your challenges. Are you a good listener? I'm a terrible listener. I want to talk to my kids, instead of being quiet and listening. And listen with your heart. So are you a better talker or a better listener? I'm going to tell you 2 stories. And maybe I don't judge anyone, and no one. I do not judge anyone. Maybe you'll see yourself in one of these stories. I was in Illinois 2 years ago, and after I was finished speaking, a middle school boy came up, talked to me. He was I was there all day, and then I did a program at night. It was like a lock-in for kids. It's called Snowball. And so I talked to 1,200 middle school kids in the gymnasium, and it's all day long, and they're doing all kinds of stuff. End of the night, 8 o'clock at night, I did a parent talk similar to this, and the kids stayed, so they're in the classrooms and stuff. Everybody's leaving. It's like 8:30, 9 o'clock at night. This one little boy comes up and talks to me. He says, Mr. Flood, I've been waiting to talk to you all day. And I said, dude, I got time for it. Come on, sit down. I got nowhere to go. And I was staying that night. And he started crying. And He said, when you were talking today, I was just thinking about everything that I want to do. And I said, I'm a swimmer. And I've been swimming for like 6 or 7 years. But he said, I don't want to swim anymore. I want to be in the school play. I want to sing. I don't want to act. And I said, dude, that's awesome. I said, what's the conflict? He said, my mom and dad don't want me to quit swimming. And I can't go to play practice if I'm swimming. And I've heard stories around the country of addiction and overdose and parents dying of overdose and parents dying of COVID. I had some girls in Pennsylvania a few weeks ago told me about their moms dying of COVID. But stories like that, and I make no judgment of the parents. I don't know maybe the kid's an amazing swimmer. Maybe he's going to be an Olympic swimmer. All I know is that I saw a little boy who wanted to be in the play. So are you listening or are you talking? And I was in Minnesota a couple years ago. I'll never forget this kid. He was amazing. I think his name was, he had an Italian name. It was Ernesto or Emilio. And so what I do is I give an assembly, and then I get a chance to go back into classrooms with the kids and do like a debrief and a follow-up, and the kids go around and, they can ask me a question, they can share something that's going on. So he is the last kid who shared. And again, you could see in his eyes, he's welling up, and I was like, Emilio, what's going on, man? What's the matter? He goes, Mr. Flood, I don't know how to tell you this. He goes, whenever I see a homeless person, I want to give them money, and my mom and dad won't let me. And I said, Emilio, it's okay. I said, they're probably just trying to protect you. But I said to him, with all assurance, I said, Emilio, there will come a day when you can do whatever you want with your money. And if you feel compelled to give money to someone who's homeless, whether or not you know anything about them, right now you're in 7th grade and your mom and dad don't want you to do that. And I said, and that's okay. I don't know your mom and dad, and I don't meet most parents of the kids I talk to. I don't know anything about them except for what the kids tell me. But I said, there will come a day. So again, I ask you without making judgment, are you listening? Are you really listening? Not here. Here. And my wake-up call, I got, and I shared this story earlier. This is my house. Justin, focus on Justin. It's all about Justin. Oh, Sarah's fine. Justin. Sarah's going to medical school. She's going to be fine. Justin. 3 years ago, Sarah was a sophomore in high school, and it was Christmas. My wife works in a hospital, and it was her holiday party, and we were supposed to go. We had a fight. Daddy was a baby. He decided not to go. I'm not going. So I decide, I'm not going. Go to your holiday party without me. I'm an idiot sometimes. I admit it. I go up in my room. Now, Justin was going to stay home alone. The neighbor was going to look in on him. He didn't know that I stayed home. I'm up in my room. The door, my bedroom door is cracked open. Sarah comes home from her friend's house, 16 years old. Justin's crying. Justin, what's going on? I was privy to a conversation, and I thank God that I was. We should all be privy to conversations of our children that they have with the siblings or their friends. So Sarah, Justin, what's the matter? Why are you crying? Mommy and Daddy had a fight, and I'm struggling in school. I'm so lonely in school. I got no friends. I'm getting rejected all the time. Then I hear Sarah. Justin, I know how you feel. I have massive anxiety. I can't even walk through the commons. I have to duck into a classroom just to get away from the chaos of school. I had no idea. Because I was focused over here on Justin, which makes sense. He's got autism. He's a special needs kid. Where's your focus? Are you listening? And I know it's so hard to be a parent. You know what I said? We talked about the saints today, and I was saying to Patrick, the saints didn't have kids. None of the saints had, as far as I know, St. Francis never had to take 8 kids on a plane, right? Or even 1. or have a child with autism. Like, did Mother Teresa have any kids? No. Well, maybe she did. I mean, she had, thousands of kids. But are you listening? Are you listening? So your challenge is, are you a good talker or a good listener? And do we make, when kids come to us, when our children come to us with a problem, do we make it about them or about us? I think the most powerful thing that you can say to your children, to any child, is, I know how you feel, I felt the same way, and this is what I did. I love you is powerful, you're important is powerful, but when you go to that empathy piece, like Brene Brown talks about, I know how you feel, I felt the same way, and this is what I did. That's empathy. So your first challenge is to know your child. Your second challenge is who's on your team. Teachers, counselors, administrators, how do you communicate with them? It's not an adversarial relationship. I know there's privacy issues sharing about your children with counselors, teachers, administrators, and I completely understand and respect that. My children went to Scope, which is an after-school program, when they were in elementary school. And in 5th grade, Justin would have a bad day. And he'd go to Scope and he'd be all messed up and just be all over the place, getting into it with other kids and just acting up and all kinds of stuff going on. And I went there to pick him up one day, and the Scope after-school teacher said to me, Mr. Flood, Justin was really off today, and we couldn't really, get him under control and, get him focused, refocused, and redirected. And I said, well, did you talk to the psychologist or any of his teachers? And they said, no, we're not allowed to. And I said, okay, I'll fix that. So the first letter went to the superintendent. The second letter went to the director of curriculum. The third letter went to the principal. The fourth letter went to his teacher. The fifth letter went to the psychologist and the social worker in the school. You have my full 100% permission to talk amongst yourselves if it will help my child. So are you communicating with your children's teachers? When Justin started college, and he's not going anymore, he didn't do well, he went to a little community college. I actually got in trouble because a FERPA, once he turns 18, you're not allowed, like, everything's nice in elementary, middle school, and high school. You can talk to the teachers and they can talk to you. But when he gets to college, so I'm writing to college professors, I'm like, hey, I'm Justin Flood's dad. They're like, yeah, I can't talk to you. But are you communicating with your children's teachers? Is there something that they need to know that would help them educate your child? And if there is, tell them. Tell them. It's a partnership. It's not an adversary. It's not you say this, I say this. You work together. That's how you educate a child. You work together. So how strong are your relationships? And I am a huge advocate, and I have an advantage. I can say things to parents and to teachers that other people can't. Do you teach your children to have a trusted adult in the building? I had a little girl come up to me today, and she was struggling. And I said, who's your go-to person? She said, I don't have one, Mr. Flood. I said, well, you need to get two. You need to have a go-to adult in the building. And let me tell you about two people, one who's going to hit close to home here in Florida. I spoke in Connecticut, Lyman, Connecticut, or Westport. I forget where I was. It was the ferry ride from my house. But I was in Connecticut a few years ago, and the group that brought me in was called Wingman. And Wingman was started by a man named Ian Hockley in honor of his son, Dylan Hockley, who was a first grader at Sandy Hook Elementary School. And when I got to know Ian's a wonderful man. What a gentle soul he is. And, to lose a 6-year-old, in that violence is an amazing man. And he still raises a tremendous amount of money. But he was telling me a story which I didn't know. When Dylan was killed that day, I smile when I tell the story because I think it's so powerful. They found his aide, Mrs. Murphy, and she was wrapped around him trying to protect him. And she gave up her life to protect, and Dylan had autism. So I'm protecting him. And she gave up her life. And I was speaking in Canada a few years ago. That's the type of people that we have working in schools, if you have any doubt about teachers. And the other example I'll give you is I was talking in Canada to a leadership group in Toronto 3 years ago, I guess it is now. And they bring in, it's called the Count Me In Leadership Summit. And they bring in about 150 students from all over the country. There's kids from Mexico and Florida and all over. And I started to tell the story about Aaron Feiss, who was a coach and a teacher at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland. And Mr. Feiss blocked one of the exits to the door, and he gave up his life for kids. And I'm telling the story, I'm talking about teachers, and as I'm talking about Mr. Feiss, 2 girls get up and excuse themselves, and they leave my talk. And about 10 minutes later, they came back in, and after the talk was over, they came up to introduce themselves to me. Their names were Kate and Lola. And they said, Mr. Flood, thank you for talking about Mr. Feiss. We go to Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School, and we knew him. And they said, what you said about him, there's 100 of it. He was an amazing man. He was one of our favorite teachers. Be careful what you say in the front of the room, because you never know who's sitting in your audience. That's how strongly I feel about teachers, that they would lay down their life for kids. So who are we to judge how they teach? Remember, it's a partnership. Your second challenge is partner with teachers and teach them to have a trusted adult in the building. There's been kids today have all the social pressures without any of the social skills. And recently, and the phone is just destroying social skills. Kids don't even know how to, well, I don't know, we're not allowed to shake hands now, right? But eye contact has completely gone out the window. But peer groups have been understood to provide a purpose other than the more negative view of being sources for peer pressure. They provide support with their unwavering rules and codes for kids to cling to in the midst of constantly changing worlds, middle school and high school. Loyalty to the group, however, carries out group will with indifference and sometimes cruelty to others, which I don't see that here. I ask kids, and you should too, are you the same person one-on-one that you are when you get around your friends? And Alan Watts said, schools are, you'll like this, Patrick, schools are places where parents send their kids to be raised by other kids. Don't do that. Send your kids to be raised by adults. So your second challenge is who's on your team, and partner with teachers. This one's going to be a little bit tough. Your third challenge is to let your kids fail. What? Let them fail. They have to. A lot of people say, I say this to teachers, a lot of the books that I'm reading now about social emotional learning, and there's a lot of pushback now about emotion in society, and everybody's all, like, anyway, I don't even have to say what we're all thinking the same things. A lot of people ask, don't you think kids lack toughness or moral fiber that people had generations ago? Suppose they do. Does that mean we shirk or abdicate our responsibility? If it means they need support, we should give it to them, done at home. Anything you can say. It's not, when I was growing up, it was helicopter parents who hover over their kids. Now it's lawnmower parents who mow the lawn in front of their kids and make their path very smooth. You have to let your kids fall once in a while. It doesn't mean we go through the problem for them, but we certainly can go through it with them and pick them up when they do fall. So your third challenge, again, is to let them fail. Khalil Gibran, I don't know if you ever read The Prophet Khalil Gibran, great poet. My favorite is on children. He said, your children are not your children. They are the sons and daughters of life longing for itself. They come through you, but not for you. Don't live through your children. Do not live through your children. Justin has taught me that more than anything. And Elizabeth Kubler-Ross said, should we shield the mountain from the windstorms, we'd never see the beautiful carvings. Don't always shield them. I have a very close friend of mine, a man named John O'Hara, who lives in Florida, by the way, a very, very wise man. And he said something to me one day that absolutely blew me away. And I still can't get my head wrapped around it. I was telling him a story. When Justin and I go to the movies, he has the AMC app. We go to the movies like 3 times a week. I have seen some of the worst movies. And in COVID, we've been in the movies alone at least 18, 20 times. Alone, in a full amp theater, Dolby, the whole thing. We're like up dancing around. I'm videotaping, illegally shooting the video. We're watching, but there's no one in the theater. Great way to watch a movie. Anyway, when we walk out of a movie, dollars to donuts, every time Justin is up in someone's face, another kid, did you like the movie? What did you think of the movie? Like Justin's the kid who, there's some kids who are higher support, who don't speak at all with autism. Justin speaks all the time. He nonstop, like when Justin was born, he developed typically till he was 12 or 14 months old, and then he stopped making noises. And so he stopped speaking at 14 months old, and he didn't speak again until he was 5, and now he won't shut up. I feel like he's making up for all those years. Be careful what you pray for. So anyway, I'm telling this story to John O'Hara, and I'm like, John, and he's always, and like, I'm not embarrassed by it, but he's really up in these kids' faces talking to them. And he said to me, and I still have a hard time saying this to people. He said, Dave, guess what? Justin has the right to be rejected by other people. You can't protect him. And I said, he has the right to be rejected? And he said, yep, because he does. You can't protect them all the time. They are human beings. They have the right to be rejected. Pick them up. We pick them up, and we do it with teachers. Rituals, I talked about dinner earlier, is so important, and I mentioned giving kids choices is so important. When we limit their choices, their anxiety goes up. So give them as many choices as possible. So the 3 challenges that I gave to the kids, were look on the inside, thank 2 adults, and no one eats alone. Your challenges are know your child, who's on your team, and let them fail. Let them fail. So I want to end with 2 stories. Well, 3 stories, actually. So when you have autism, but they'll really represent, this encapsulates everything that I talked about this afternoon and this evening. When you have autism, you don't get invited to many places. The invitations are not numerous. And when you have a party, not many kids, if anybody, shows up. My wife was always so good, and she would take Justin to all of Sarah's events when Sarah would get invited to a birthday party. So they went to a hockey rink one time for a skating party. They run into my cousin Dennis. Make a long story short, Justin got to play on a rec league hockey team, and some boys let him score a goal. And it was amazing because he was playing with typical kids, and he was a special needs kid. It was an amazing story. But when he got to freshman year in high school, and he the first month of school, I think it was like the second week of school, he walks in the front door. He throws open the front door like Kramer on Seinfeld, and he comes walking in, and he goes, Daddy, I want to go to the prom. And I'm like, Justin, you're a freshman. Like, the prom's when you're a senior, dude. We'll get you there. We'll figure it out. And I'm like, oh, no. So I go to my wife. How are we going to get Justin to the prom? She's like, Dave, it's in 3 years. We'll figure it out. So we're stressing out about it because he's bringing up the prom once a month. And in March and April, when the signs go up in the school, forget about it. I'm going to the prom. I'm like, oh, freshman year, sophomore year, junior year. So fast forward, he's a junior. It's like April of junior year. We go to a dance, like a Knights of Columbus dance for his camp friends, not school friends, for his camp acquaintances, kids who go to special needs camp with him. After the dance is over, we're up in a room. About 100 kids there. We're up in a room, and I'm chatting with some of the parents, having coffee. Justin is about, I don't know, 5, 6 feet behind me, and he's talking to this really sweet girl named Larissa, who's a year older. She goes to a different high school. She's a senior. He's a junior. Now, anytime Justin is talking to anybody, to this day, this is me. When he talks to girls, this is me. Because I have no idea what he's going to say. And they're speaking anime. They were speaking like a foreign language. They're talking like Jap. I'm like, what the heck are they talking about? And out of nowhere, this really sweet, shy, wonderful girl, Larissa, says to him, Justin, I don't know how to ask you this, but do you think that, you think you'd go to my prom with me? This was me. What? I like drop my coffee. It's starting to come out my nose. I'm like, holy crap. And I say to these adults very politely, I go, would you guys excuse me? My son's being invited to the prom. So I take a step back. I'm about an inch away from him. He has no idea I'm standing behind him. Ladies and gentlemen, in the history of every prom invitation that's ever been offered, I guarantee you've never heard this answer. If any of your children use this answer when they get invited to the prom, ground them. And I hope you never hear it again. Larissa says, Justin, do you think, I was wondering if you might like to go to my prom with me? My son, who I thought I raised so well, brings him to I go to church with him every Sunday. We read together. I do all these wonderful things. He's been talking about the prom for 3.5 years. He looks at Larissa and says, yeah, what the hell? Sorry, sorry, wherever you are, you're all around us. You're omnipotent. So where did you learn that? Like what? And they went and had an awesome time, and then he reciprocated and took Larissa to his senior prom the next year. But, he's an amazing kid, and he is just my on-ramp to the highway of kindness, because there's millions of Justins out there. I have so many kids come up and say, Mr. Flood, I can relate to your story, and they'll talk about their grandmother, or they'll talk about their brother, or they're lonely, they miss their sister. It's not about the circumstances, it's about that the feelings are the same. And I will end with this, and I would ask you to really drive this home with your kids, because it's the last thing I shared with them, and they will remember it. I don't know what it's like in Palmetto, but I assume it's like it is in New York and Long Island. In 6th grade is when kids start to get to go out trick-or-treating alone. There's no more play date. There's no more in 4th grade. Hey, are you following them in the wagon? Are we driving behind them trick-or-treating? Where are we meeting up? None of that. 6th grade, kids make the plans in school, 3, 4, 5 o'clock. They connect at someone's house. I hope COVID. I don't know if they trick-or-treated last year in Florida. I'm not sure if we did in New York. I think we did. But in 6th grade, Justin had no one to go with. His birthday is October 26th. Halloween, he loves anime. He's a dress-up kid. Totally, right? 6th grade, he's got nobody to go with. Nobody. We don't want him going alone. He's not mature enough. He doesn't want us to follow him in the car because he thinks he's a big kid. He was staying home that day. He's up in his room. I'm downstairs, getting up and down, going back and forth to the front door, giving out candy to the trick-or-treaters. The 4th or 6th time I got up, I went to the front door. I give out candy to the kids on the stoop, and out of the corner of my eye, I spot 2 boys from Justin's school who showed up at the end of our driveway. And I use their full names no matter where I'm standing in the country. Kevin Cryer Hassett and a boy named Cameron Jacobs. They showed up. They didn't call, they didn't text, they didn't tell Justin they were coming, and they didn't come to our house for candy. And Kevin saw me on the stoop and he yelled, Mr. Flood, is Justin home? And if he is, can Cameron and I take him out for a couple hours? And I go, Kev, give me 10 minutes, dude. I'll get him ready. And they took him because they showed up. And that's the last thing I said to your kids. And I hope that you will tell them this too. There will come, and there has come in all of our lives, in mine, thousands of days when I needed someone. And there will come thousands of days in your children's lives when they need someone. And if they have consistently shown up for others, when those days come, someone will show up for them. If you forget everything I said tonight, you have so much here at Palmer. So much has been given. Share that. And just teach your kids to show up. Show up. Thank you. I am terrible. I am humble. I am terrible at self-promotion. Justin and I released a book in April. It's called The Kid's Book About Autism. It's a book for 5 to 9-year-olds. So if you have younger ones, It is tremendous. There's no pictures. It's all words. It's meant to be read to a child. It's 25% in Justin's voice and 75% in my voice. So if you'd like to, it's not on Amazon. It's a kid's company about, but if you Google a kid's book about, they have about 40 authors with all different titles. A kid's book on mental health, a kid's book on money, a kid's book on racism, a kid's book on all kinds of things, and ours is a kid's book about autism. So this is something that you can share with another family who can use it. Please, I'd be grateful. Patrick, thank you.
We want to say thank you, David, for showing up for us and for our community at this time. And we have a few more gifts for you, besides the Sour Patch Kids from this morning. So, again, please give David a big, big thank you again. Thank you.
Thank you. I have to open it in front of you? No, oh, okay.
You don't have to open it.
I have something for you, and I want to read this to you. I'll try and do it without crying. So I wrote a little dedication in the book. It says, Patrick and staff, I'm humbled by your genuine hospitality. I am welcomed at most schools around the country, most. However, I felt embraced by everyone at Palmer Trinity. I am grateful. David. You go, sir.
We'll get you back.
Thank you.
Very soon.
I'll be back.
All right.
Anytime.
Thank you.